Hello, folks. I'm Joe Wesley of J&L Creative Solutions, and my guest today is.
Vickie Poole, and it's so great to be here.
Thank you for joining. My pleasure also. For those who are seeing us for the first time, welcome and thank you for being a part of our program. For those who are coming back, thank you even more for wanting to hear more. We do appreciate that. The concept is, as my tagline goes, I don't claim that I see dead people, but I will help you discover something unique about yourself that your competition can't lay claim to, that gives you a distinct advantage in your business. And I call that your secret sauce. Again, people can fake a sense, or they can copy what you do, they can mimic what you do, but they can't fake who you are. So I go about by asking questions, and I begin by asking what's your favorite pastime, because that goes to your passion. There's only one Vickie Poole that's grown up in the manner that she's grown up. And as I ask questions, again, unscripted, unrehearsed, we get a sense of who she is. We do that for the first 20 minutes, plus or minus, of the dialogue. And I say plus or minus because I make notes. I'll be looking down every now and then, not because I'm falling asleep, but I have a mind like a sieve.
Please don't fall asleep.
Right. So I keep a notepad and I make notes. When I run out of space, we stop asking questions and we start talking about the persona on board. It's as free form as that, but we try to allow at least 10 minutes to talk about her business. We do encourage you to share us with your friends, your associates, and because we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we post to Alignable also. If you have questions, we really ask you to share that back on us. We do tag and follow up on comments and make a point of it. At some point, you want to know more about Vickie, you want to know more about myself, there will be a description in certainly the YouTube version about who we are, how to connect with us. If you have any questions, by all means, get back. So enough rambling of the moment. Let me ask Vickie the question. So Vickie, what's your favorite pastime?
Well, I have two that I do. One of them is my podcast. It's like that.
I'm going to interrupt.
Okay.
I'm going to hazard a guess that you were born a little before 2010, and they didn't have Zoom Connects then.
That's right.
We're doing podcasting with 3 or 4 years of age. I'm going to deliberately take you back to an earlier part of your lifestyle in terms of being young, impressionable, not having much control over your life, whatever it may be. Do you have a sense that you enjoy doing that you might or might not still do if you go back to that stage of your life all over again?
Yeah, that was the second one. The second one that I was going to tell you is drawing and painting, and writing poetry. I do those things.
Okay. Now you're talking to a guy that actually failed art in elementary school. So it's not a natural flow for me. If I ask dumb questions, please bear with me. You said drawing, painting, and poetry?
Mm-hmm. And poetry. Mm-hmm.
Is your poetry free form or the iambic pentameter or whatever?
It's just free form. Sometimes it rhymes, sometimes it doesn't, but it's just whatever at the moment. When I was a young child, I used to sit on a log that was going across the creek, and I would dangle my feet in the water and I would just write poetry. And I had notebooks and notebooks of poetry, and I still write some, but not like I did back then.
Okay. Interesting. What certain theme, certain topic, or whatever came to mind?
Just whatever came to mind. It was usually something that was going on in my life.
Okay.
So some of them at that age, as I got a little bit older as a teenager, those were, a little heartache and all that,
So did that double as your diary also when you got older? You writing your poetry?
Yeah, but my diary was a little bit different. And I'll be honest, I quit doing a diary because I just didn't want people to have all my thoughts. So poetry felt safer to put your thoughts in, and because it could be about anybody.
That's intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So you could express yourself without exposing yourself. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah.
I'm a slow writer, folks, so bear with me on this. Drawing and painting. I'm going to assume that was another form of expression for you, yes?
Yeah. And I was one of those people, one of those kids that if I colored in the coloring books, I would shade things. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I would shade things so that
Okay.
they looked better.
Right.
And I would sometimes draw my own pictures and color those. So when I was about in the sixth grade, I think it was, my mom asked me if I wanted some art lessons, and I did. So we went to this private woman's house, and I went once a week, and she helped me with seeing how to look at things and being able to put them on the page.
Hmm.
And it just changed my whole view of everything. So when I look at a tree, it's not just a tree, it's those looking at the nuances of all the light and what the limbs look like and the little leaves. And so it changed the way I looked at things.
Do you ever do photography, or was it always drawing?
It was, oh, I've done a little bit of photography, but I liked, and this is not to say anything bad about photographers, but for me, it almost felt like you were cheating
Fair
because
enough.
I liked taking the visual of what I saw and putting it on the paper with my hand
Right.
instead of having a photograph.
I get the impression, you may have said it, that your drawings were eclectic, that you didn't scenery versus people versus, or what was there for the moment. How does that work for you?
Actually, when until just about a year or so ago, a few years ago, I always had it was more fine art. So it was like it looked like what it was, but I would I would just paint from a photograph that I saw, or I would paint out in nature. And I didn't really paint from my imagination because I couldn't seem to get my imagination to translate onto the canvas. So
Okay.
sometimes I would take, if I knew I wanted to do a picture of a sailboat on the ocean um, and this path over here and everything, I would find a picture of a path that I liked, and then I would find a picture of a sailboat, and then I would just create my own picture from these little pieces.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Structure, detail. Was
Yeah.
your poetry along the same line?
Kind of. Yeah. I guess
Okay.
so.
So let me go to poetry again. That some people write things based on imagination, maybe philosophy. Do you attack world events? I'm not sure yet how you.
No, not a world events kind of girl.
Okay. Life growing up, I'm not
Yeah.
sure the theme of the flavor. So,
Well, it changes. Like when I was a teenager and all, it was all the angst of school and
mm,
parents and things that you were doing in relationships and all of that. And lately, it's been more poetry about aspirations and maybe some limiting beliefs that come up, and then I'll write a poem about something about the limiting beliefs.
I see.
But I guess it's all life related. So it's something that I'm usually going through or anticipate going through
Right.
that I'll write about.
Okay. And I may have lost track on the art. It was realistic type art, then not.
Right. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just share real quick. I
Sure.
had always felt like it had to look exactly like what it was supposed to look like,
Okay.
you know? And I went to a spiritual retreat um, just a few years ago. And on that retreat, there was a woman who was teaching art. And in this art class, it was you were supposed to just get into the feel of things. So she gave everybody a bucket with some water in it, paintbrushes, and some paints on a plate and a canvas. And then they were playing music and doing drumming and all these things. And you were just supposed to paint your emotions.
Right.
And I had so much fun painting my emotions that I even framed that picture when I got home. And then I've done quite a few since then of it doesn't really have to look like anything. It just has to feel like what I was feeling. And so that was a very big difference for me. Now I still do some of the paintings where I was standing out in the yard and I was painting the trees, and the trees look like the trees out there, but I would alter like the shape a little bit, or I would alter the color a little so it didn't have to look identical.
Right.
And I never did that before I did that retreat where she helped me see that it's okay to just paint what you're feeling, no matter what it looks like.
You threw me through a loop there initially because I had the sense of it had to be real. If you see a bird in a tree, it had to be that bird in that tree. It could be almost a photograph in terms of the quality of realism. So when I hear being in a scenario that you have to paint emotion, then that to me becomes a little bit more, I'll say, philosophical in the not
Hmm.
the act of painting. That's just not my strength. But then you brought it to me back home again. It's just, well, how you feel. And how you feel is real.
Hmm.
And so to me, so it's not quite impressionist, if I'm using that word correctly, but because it's still based on a reality in your world. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah. Now, some of them are just lines and shapes and colors and
Right.
just movement of the paint.
Interesting.
So it can be a very abstract now, and I'm okay with that. It just
Okay.
it feels good.
Okay. Feels good. I get that.
Yeah.
So you say you still do the poetry to some degree, you still do the painting to some degree, but I'm assuming you've gotten busy now, a little bit past puberty, I guess, other things
Yeah.
take your
Yeah.
attention from you. And one of the things you talked about was stand up and stand out FB community. Does that mean
Facebook
Facebook?
community. Hmm.
Pardon? Okay, fair
Facebook
enough.
community. Hmm.
I see. And it says master of habit change.
Yeah.
So
I'm
is that correct to imply that things won't stay the same? You should not stay the same. I'm not sure of your thrust on that.
okay. Well, I am a transformational coach and a hypnotist,
Hmm.
and I help people to change the habits that they feel are holding them back.
Right.
And so, and the one of the things that's constant in life is change. You're never stagnant, staying the same. So you're either changing on purpose or you're changing by default. And so I help people to make that change on purpose.
Now you've lost me on that because initially I thought you were going to say that people by nature tend not to change and you were going to be the catalyst to have it occur. But I'm hearing you say just the opposite.
Not necessarily. It's not that, it's the thing that people are always changing because
Hmm.
we can't stay the same. Like we're different now than we were when we got on here. We're just different people.
Okay, fair enough. I
It's
hear you.
changed, right?
Right.
And so we can either change because we're choosing to change who we are, how we do, how we show up, and we're learning and we're growing and we're becoming all the time. Or
Okay.
for someone who sits there and says, well, that's just too much work. Let me just go watch TV. I'm good where I'm at, but you
Hmm.
don't stay where you're at. So
Okay.
I help people to actually feel more comfortable into this change that they want in their life.
Wow.
Does
Okay.
that make
So
sense?
no, so I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. But folks, this is not rehearsed. My question is going to be: how did you grow from or evolve from change, of course, from art and poetry into what you're doing now? How did that path occur for you?
Well, actually, I started becoming a health coach because I had a weight issue that I'd had my whole life and I was tired of it and I wanted to make a change.
Okay.
And so I started searching for how I could do that. So I decided to become a health coach to change me. And the coaching school that I went to, their thing was all about habit change. And that's what I needed. So
Okay.
then I got a life coaching certification, a master transformational certification. And that really started my journey. And I started recognizing that I was falling back into some of my old habits.
Right.
And then I got into hypnosis so that I would be able to do it a little more effectively. So that's what I do to help people to create new habits that support them because we all have habits that kind of hold us back sometimes, some of
Right.
those limiting beliefs. And so I help people to get past those limiting beliefs and make the changes that they're looking for.
Okay. I see that.
Does that
Interesting.
make more sense?
Actually, it does.
Okay.
Excuse me. I shouldn't sound surprised. Yes, of course it does. I'm
You
gonna
can
write.
sound surprised if you want to.
I'm going to make one more item here. Again, folks, this is live unrehearsed, which I enjoy, and I think I'm enjoying Vickie also. Thank you for being who you are. I'd like to share some observations with you for some
Okay.
feedback.
Oh yeah, I love it.
And and I usually will start the end and work backwards. And you talk about taking a personal dissatisfaction about yourself, walking your talk, change yourself, and you'll do what it takes to make it happen. So you take the courses, you get the certification, and then you realize that people struggle with making their changes. And how did you fall into hypnosis as a technique?
Well, I had the school that I went to had little bits and pieces of hypnosis and NLP and EFT and all those, and that may be a foreign language, but that's okay.
Okay.
Um, but I had had hypnosis many years before, and so for whatever reason, as soon as I started dropping back into some of those old habits,
Hmm.
the first thing that came to my mind was hypnosis. So I started researching some different hypnosis people that I could study under. And I now have 5 different certifications of different modalities of hypnosis. And I just kind of use bits and pieces of all of them. And I'm actually in a course right now to learn some more.
I hear that. So what comes to mind if I go further back, and I'm going to skip to the beginning of our dialogue in terms of your joy of drawing and poetry. And
Hmm.
it's more than your joy of it. You're proficient enough at it that somebody recommended. Your parent, I think your mother, would you like to take courses for this because she sees the quality of what you're doing. And to me, drawing, I think it's an intriguing skill, which again I have nothing about of hand-eye contact. That it takes observation. It takes, I think, to some degree, memorization, because quite honestly, Vickie, once I take my eyes off your face, I forget what you look like. Just right.
Oh, man.
Sorry, indeed, nothing to do with you at all. But so for you, can maybe look at somebody and you sit when you draw at the moment, perhaps, but when you go home, maybe you finish it, maybe you come back. But still, it's being able to not lose it the moment you take your eyes off it. It stays with you long enough to etch, and the detail that goes along with it. And I find the poetry, I'm assuming that it wasn't so much that it had to be regimented, it was getting the thought out as I'm
Yeah.
hearing it.
Yeah.
And that was far more important. I see a lot of similarity that putting the thought on paper, be it in a graphic manner, and it's almost the same thing. If you use words, it's still a graphic manner, but a different structure.
Hmm.
So to express. And what I get out of it is some people draw, they let loose of it, they walk away from it. It's a passing fancy. It's, I think, still a part of who you are. You may not have the time that you had before. But the concept that I see was it's also an expression mechanism. It's a coping mechanism. Initially, it was internal for yourself. I asked you at one point, did the drawing or the writing serve a purpose for your diary? And you said no, but as I think about it, it was yes, but in a different format. That you broaden out the concept of it, and people will appreciate it as an art form rather than a self-expression. But I would suspect your poetry, I think you've indicated that, has a lot to do with your philosophy, your observations.
Hmm.
So I think the art, and what I'm intrigued by, you like the detail aspect of it. And even in the free form, go with your emotion. It sounds like you still made sense of that in some realistic
Yeah.
format. Okay.
Yeah.
So I see a consistency there. So when I hear you talk about the concept of becoming a coach, again, coping mechanism, um, I hear you talk about going into hypnosis. And when I say coping, a sense of as again, observation may not be visual, it may be emotional, it may be in a figurative manner of it, that you take it on because that's who you are.
Hmm.
And when you express your poetry to other people, you express your drawing with other people, share it perhaps, either or, sharing might be more accurate. The issue of hypnosis, I think, again, it's an addendum to the same aspect of observation, interpretation, and being able to express the skill of coaching, health coach of sorts, if I'm getting that terminology correct,
Hmm.
with your hypnosis. As you say, some people need extra help. Because I'd ask you at one point that people change by nature. I happen to disagree with that. I think many of us do it under duress, perhaps, more often than not. And that's just the way the world works. So rather than bang people over their head, you do just the opposite. You want to understand them better, again, observe, make comment, share back. And so when you express, I'm assuming to people, in a sense, you've created your poem with them, your prose, perhaps better put, you've created your drawing for them to see their picture of what could be seen to do what you're doing now. Am I far off track on that?
No, I do a lot of visualization with my clients. So I paint pictures with my words
Okay.
when I'm working with clients. And like I have my Facebook community and I go in there every single day and I share an affirmation and a journal prompt and stories, and I do workshops with them. And I just had one that I did several visualizations where I paint pictures for them to see in their minds and adopt it as something that helps them.
Okay. And what I'm impressed, that's very nice, actually. And I shouldn't sound surprised. I keep being surprised at myself, which I guess is a good thing. It gets me out of bed every morning.
That's right.
But having said that, many people, I know a lot of coaches, varying degrees of skill, certification, training, commitment, whatever it may be. I don't know as many hypnotists, or if I do, they're keeping quiet about who they are. So I can't attest to that. But certainly the combination of the two I find very intriguing. And to me, it's a consideration because, again, people struggle with how they stand out from the competition. I think most consumers are hesitant to spend money, time, or resource because how do I know I'm making a good decision? I don't have a budget anyway for this stuff. I don't want to waste it, or I've had a bad experience. I'm hesitant to try it again. Again, I'm inclined to believe people not as inclined to change spontaneously. But I think you've developed a skill on a personal level regarding your weight. You see, you made a decision. You wanted to respond to it, and you use the tools that are natural for you. So I see the pattern where if someone wanted to improve the world, I'm assuming it's personal and or business, or do you make a distinction there?
No.
Okay, fair enough. And they're not sure who they might go to. I could see you being an ideal person for somebody, certainly if they appreciate art right off the bat. I assume if you speak with images, you speak with words, you're going to share, and I've observed it here, a much more, I won't say colorful, but a much more intuitive image of what you can provide for them and to help them along without using the traditional word by word by word, because you can draw an image, you can draw a picture, you can share a poetry or prose with them. You tell the story. That's a big thing now in business now. Share your story.
Mm-hmm.
I think you walk and talk and draw your story. And not even just your story, because you are a hypnotist. You have a tool, as I understand it, to unlock better for that person to discover their own story. They can share back in a positive manner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I help them because one of the things that usually holds so many people back is they have this dream, they have this story of who they want to be, but they have some beliefs that they've accumulated over their lifetime, whether it's that they're not smart enough, they're not good enough, whatever those voices in their head are, that keeps them from moving forward.
Right.
And so what I do is I help them to reframe those things. I like to say that if they've had something really bad that happened in their life and that's made them feel this way, I don't take the bad thing away because there's usually a lesson in there. There's a gift in there that we're supposed to be paying attention to.
And more likely it will never go away. So I'm saying you put it to use then, yes?
Yeah. So we want to have that as a tool to keep us safe or keep us from making the same mistakes again or whatever it is. But we take the emotional charge so that it's not the thing that as soon as they start to do something, they remember that and how bad it was, and then they don't move forward. So it's taking that emotional charge out of it. So, you can look back at it and say, oh yeah, that's when that happened. And it helped me see that I needed to do this. And now I can do it this way.
You kind of remind me, I'm a biology major by nature, and I do try to exercise, but I don't like it. As
Yeah.
a biology major, this is really not about me, but something you just said, that when I see people on TV exercising as a group and they're grinning, now I'm saying, what the flip are they grinning about? And I know philosophically, there's the release of endorphins, they share environment, they're this and that. So my concept for me, as much as I hate exercising, if I want to be a hunk, I got to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking that obstacle, that challenge, and converting it into something that's going to make me a better person, because now I have the focus, I have the goal. And this, if nothing else, an avoidance, how to deal with it better to enhance my skills down the road. Is that kind of how you approach your
Yes.
program?
Yeah.
Interesting. So now, are there different schools of hypnotism or philosophies? I know in medicine there is. I don't know if in what you do.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you get people under hypnosis. There's different rules of thumb about what you focus on, and there's all different kinds of things that hypnosis works for.
Mhm,
So each one of the certifications that I have a different way of me doing the process and
mhm,
different ways to help people. So I just pick and choose through there what resonates with me
mhm.
and do my thing.
I hear that, and that, as you said something just now, again, another thought hit me in my face, that you say people. Your implication was that people were inclined to change. I'm saying just the opposite. But you are who you are. You change yourself. I'm hearing you evolve. You evolve. You evolve,
Mhm.
and so it's natural for you. Certainly, as a way of life, and I guess a way of philosophy. We grew up in different sides of the world, I guess.
Yeah.
But because of that, I can see you being an excellent stimulant for people who it's not in such a natural flow for them. And I
Yeah.
find that very intriguing. But we tell people this is actually a very good conversation. And my concern is, we say we're a 30-minute program and we're getting another 2.5 minutes on that. Is there something you'd like to say to kind of take us home as a philosophy or a thought?
Well, I will say that one of the things that I really have been focusing on lately is helping people that are looking to make these big changes in their life. It's not like they're being forced to change, they're wanting to. So, like, I've just helped some people that were wanting to do a TED talk and they were scared and they had to jump through all these different things in their mind to get there. So I helped that. I've helped a person who was she's actually a keynote speaker, but she couldn't go to a networking event and have conversations with people because it wasn't scripted.
Hmm.
And so I helped those people to be able to show up in their space, being who they wanted to be and who they were inside. They
Hmm.
just hadn't been able to get it out.
I
So
understand.
that's why my community is called Stand Up and Stand Out,
Yeah, I was going to
because
ask you about that, the purpose of your
yeah,
Facebook community.
so that's what I help them do, be able to stand up and stand out in whatever arena that they're in,
Hmm.
whether it's a TED talk or even being able to go on a date and talk to people, whatever it is.
Hmm.
It's being able to be confident that you have a voice, and you can exercise that voice and communicate effectively.
Okay. Well, I hear the voice concept. Is that, though, an issue of people are hesitant because they're concerned that their voice won't match up? And is your role to say it will match up, or it's unique to you and it has its own standard? Or is that a, I'm not
So
sure.
what do you mean with the voice won't match up?
Well, people are hesitant to present themselves. You talked about the person that doesn't do well if it's not scripted, because I'm
Mhm.
assuming they are insecure about their intrinsic value. So when I say not match up, I mean that manner. So I'm not sure if you share with people that, but you have a strong enough value on its own feet. You don't have to worry about comparing yourself to somebody else, because you're incomparable of the quality of what you do. I'm not sure if that's your technique, your approach to people.
Um, well, what I do is I help them to see who they really are, which is the
Okay,
dream, the person that they want to be.
right.
Because if you didn't have that within you, you wouldn't see it as something you wanted to be.
Hmm.
And so I help them to see that. And once they can see it and really get that inside, knowing that, then they show up as that person.
Okay. You said it so much better.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it actually was. I was going to sound too surprised. Exactly, that's what I meant. I've enjoyed this. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Folks, again, remember to watch us. Please share your comments, good or bad. We do audit and we respond back. Share us with your friends. And any contact information you'd like to have more about Vickie will be listed in the description section. If you'd like to be part of this program, take your hot seat challenge to discover an ingredient of your secret sauce. Please connect with me directly also, and visit us again. Remember to subscribe. I need to say that. This was a live, pre-recorded podcast. Thank you, Vickie. Thank you, audience.